Have you ever walked into a home, your own home, and felt something you could not name? A heaviness, a stillness that is not peace, a sense that something is being held back, your business, your health, your relationships, and you cannot understand why, because from the outside, everything looks fine. I want to tell you something that took me 40 years to fully understand, something that my grandfather, Rabbi Moshe Shem-Tov of Safed, tried to teach me when I was still young and too certain that I already knew enough. The danger is not always at the door. Sometimes it is already inside the house. I am Rabbi Eliyahu Shem-Tov, and I have studied the Kabbalistic teachings of protection for over 4 decades. I was born in Safed in the Galilee, in the same city where the greatest masters of Kabbalah walked its stone streets 500 years ago, Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Ari HaKadosh, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. I am not a mystical storyteller. I am a student of texts, of tradition, of a lineage that runs through my grandfather's hands directly to mine. Today I am sharing Shield 4. This is one of the 7 ancient Kabbalistic shields my grandfather revealed to me. Today I'm sharing Shield 4. There are 7 in total, and I will tell you honestly, the ones I have not shared yet are the most powerful. We will get to all of them. But this one must come today, because what I am about to describe may already be happening in your living room, your hallway, or your kitchen, and you do not have much time to correct it. The 3 household items I will reveal to you today are not cursed objects from a folklore story. They are ordinary things, things you may have owned for years, things you may have received as gifts, things you bought yourself, lovingly, with no knowledge of what they carry. And yet, according to the deepest teachings of the Zohar and the Talmud, they function as open gates through which the energy of Ayin Hara, the evil eye, can enter your home without ever knocking. Before sundown. That is what I am asking. Not tomorrow. Before sundown today. I have been teaching these principles for many years, and I have never once seen someone complete this particular practice without noticing a shift, not just in their home's energy, but in themselves. I will explain everything. Stay with me. Let me speak to you now about where I come from, so that you understand why I teach what I teach. I was born in Safed, in the Mea Shearim quarter of that ancient city, a neighborhood of narrow stone alleys and the smell of Shabbat candles. My grandfather, Rabbi Moshe Shem-Tov, was known throughout the Galilee as a Kabbalistic healer. People came to him from Haifa, from Tiberias, from Jerusalem itself. They came with broken businesses, with children who would not recover from illness, with marriages that were disintegrating without any obvious reason. My grandfather never advertised. He never had a title printed on a card. They came because one person told another person, and that person told another. That is how the real knowledge has always traveled. From the age of 12, I sat at his table. I learned how to read the Zohar not as poetry, but as instruction. I learned that the ancient masters of Safed embedded within their writings a system of protection so precise that it addressed every area of a person's life: their home, their livelihood, their health, their family relationships, and the invisible forces that could dismantle all of those things. At the age of 28, I stopped learning and started experiencing. My family's business, which we had built over many years, began to collapse. Not through any mistake I could identify, not through poor decisions or bad partnerships. It happened the way these things always happen when Ayin Hara is at work, gradually, then suddenly, then completely. Within months, everything we had built was gone. I went to my grandfather. He sat with me for a long time without speaking, and then he said to me, in Ladino, the language his own grandfather had spoken, "Eliyahu, the door was open, the wall was broken, and we let it happen." He then began to reveal to me the 7 shields, not all at once, over weeks, over months. Within 90 days of applying what he taught me, the situation reversed. Not partially, completely. The Talmud in Tractat Berakhot on page 55b states something that most modern people have never been told, that Ayin Hara, the evil eye, is responsible for more deaths than any illness or any human enemy. Rabbi Yochanan, one of the greatest sages, stated this plainly, not as a figure of speech, as a spiritual law. If you are watching this and you have never heard a rabbi speak this directly about Ayin Hara, I understand. Most synagogues today are careful about these subjects. They fear being dismissed as superstitious. But the Talmud is not a book of superstition. It is a record of reality as the sages understood it. And they understood it at a level that our modern world has not yet recaptured. Write in the comments right now, BLI Ayin Hara. Write it, not as a performance. Write it as a protection for yourself and for everyone who reads it after you. This is how we protect one another. This is what the sages understood about collective intention. Now I want to speak to you about the world we are living in, because context matters. I moved to Miami at the age of 52 to be near my daughter and my grandchildren. I now lead a small congregation here, Kehal Tzfat, named for the city of my birth. And what I observe in the families I serve, week after week, is a pattern that my grandfather described to me in a different century, on a different continent, with language that was different but described the same thing. People are working harder than ever. Families are more careful with their finances than they have ever been. And yet something keeps slipping. Something keeps not arriving. The effort is there, but the result is not matching it. A business that should be growing stalls. A child who should be thriving struggles. A health situation that should be resolving returns. A marriage that has every reason to be strong develops friction from nowhere. We live in a time of enormous economic pressure. The cost of building a life has risen in ways that would have seemed unimaginable just a decade ago. Families that were stable are now stretched. People who did everything correctly are still finding themselves falling behind. And I am not here to offer you a political explanation for this, because political explanations cannot account for the spiritual dimension. The Talmud in Bava Metzia, page 107b, teaches that the majority of afflictions in this world, including financial ones, have a spiritual origin. The sages were not speaking metaphorically. And yet the spiritual solution is not vague. It is not think positive or raise your vibration. The Kabbalistic masters of Safed gave us a system that addresses specific mechanisms. One of those mechanisms is the household itself, the home as a spiritual container. The Zohar in Parashat Pinchas contains a passage that most people have never read. It teaches that the home is a microcosm of the spiritual world. It is not simply walls and a roof. It is a vessel. And like all vessels, it can hold blessing or it can hold its opposite. What you place inside the home and what you allow to remain inside the home determines what the vessel holds. This is not metaphor. The Zohar is describing a mechanism. What I have witnessed in 40 years of studying these teachings and applying them in the lives of real families is this. The home is the first line of defense, and it is also the first place Ayin Hara gains entry, not through the front door. We address that with the mezuzah, which is shield 2, and I have taught that in an earlier session. Ayin Hara enters through the objects we keep inside. Through the things we have forgotten are there. Through the things we are emotionally attached to and therefore never examine. What I discovered is that the 7 shields are not separate practices. They are an interconnected system. Miss one and the wall has a crack. And a wall with a crack is not a wall. It is an invitation. Shield 4 comes from a source that many people overlook when they think about Kabbalistic protection. Most people focus on what enters the home, what a guest brings, what energy comes in through a doorway. Shield 4 addresses something different. It addresses what we have already brought in, and what we are keeping. The foundation of this shield appears in the Zohar's teaching on the concept of Shevirat Hakalim, the breaking of the vessels. This is one of the central concepts of Lurianic Kabbalah, the tradition of Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the Ari HaKadosh, who taught in Safed in the 16th century. He taught that in the moment of creation, divine light poured into vessels that could not contain it. Those vessels shattered, and the shards, the fragments, fell downward and became the source of all klipo, all spiritual husks and forces of impurity that operate in our world. This teaching is not only cosmological, it is practical. The Ari HaKadosh applied it to the home directly. Objects that are broken, that have shattered or cracked and been kept despite their brokenness, resonate with the energy of Shevirat Hakalim. They are, in the language of the Zohar, dwelling places for klipo. They are not merely broken objects, they are open vessels, and an open vessel, the Kabbalists teach, will be filled by whatever energy is available in that space. Bava Batra, page 2b, discusses the laws of the home as a sacred space, the obligations of homeowners to maintain the integrity of their household. The rabbis were not only speaking of physical structure, they understood that the home carries spiritual weight, and that its integrity, both physical and spiritual, is a matter of law, not merely custom. Today, Shield 4, and the three objects I am about to describe, remove them. Before sundown, if you can. If you cannot do it before sundown today, do it with intention first thing tomorrow morning. But hear this first. The intention without the action is incomplete, and the action without the intention is also incomplete. They must come together. There are three remaining shields I have not yet shared, and the most powerful one I will share only when I believe you are ready for it. But what you learn today will prepare the ground. Let me now describe to you the three household items that the Kabbalistic tradition identifies as primary attractors of Ayin Hara. I want you to walk through your home in your mind as I speak. The first is broken objects that you have kept. I am speaking specifically of objects that have cracked, chipped, or shattered, and that you have kept because of sentiment, because of the cost of replacing them, or simply because you stopped seeing them. A cracked frame, a chipped ceramic that belonged to your mother. A broken clock still hanging on the wall, stopped at the moment something went wrong. A mirror with a fracture running through one corner. You walk past these things every day without registering them. But according to the Zohar's teachings on Shevirat Hakalim, these objects are not neutral. A broken vessel that is kept and displayed, not in a moment of grief being processed, but as a permanent feature of the home, becomes a magnet for the energy of breaking. The klipo, the forces of spiritual impurity, are drawn to fractures. Not because the object is cursed, that is not the language of Kabbalah, but because a fractured vessel has, in the language of the Ari HaKadosh, already surrendered its function. It has become a hollow thing, and hollow things attract what we do not want to attract. The practice here is not complicated, but it requires honesty. Walk through your home. Open your eyes to what you have stopped seeing. Identify every broken object that you are keeping, not because it is being actively used or is in the process of being repaired, but because you have simply never removed it. Make a decision about each one. Some can be repaired, and should be with intention. Some need to be removed from the home entirely. In Kabbalistic tradition, when we remove an object because of its spiritual implications, we do not simply throw it away carelessly. We take it out with a quiet intention spoken from the heart. I release this from my home. May its brokenness not remain within these walls. In Hebrew, you may say simply, Ani meshalem et zeh. I release this, I complete this. This is not a complex ritual, it is a conscious act, and the consciousness is what activates the protection. The second object is stagnant or uncovered water that has been left in a vessel for more than 24 hours. I know this sounds unusual to modern ears, but listen to what the Talmud teaches. In several places, the sages discuss the spiritual properties of uncovered or stagnant water. Water in the Kabbalistic tradition is not simply a physical substance. Water is the primordial medium of creation. And the Spirit of Hashem hovered over the face of the waters, as it is written in Bereshit. Water is the conductor of both blessing and its opposite. The Zohar in Parashat Balak discusses how certain energies travel through water the way sound travels through air, invisibly, swiftly, and without announcing itself. In practical terms, this means the following: vases with water that has not been changed for days, a container of water in a corner of a room that was filled and forgotten, a decorative bowl holding water that has grown still and dark, even certain humidifiers that have not been cleaned and contain water that has not been freshened. These are not trivial. In the homes I have visited over 40 years, in Safed, in Miami, in communities throughout the world, this single item has appeared more consistently in homes experiencing the effects of Ayin Hara than almost any other. The practice is to empty these vessels, clean them, and if you choose to refill them, do so with fresh water and an intention of renewal. Before you refill, recite the first verse of Psalm 121, Tehillim 121. Esa einai el heharim, me ayin yavo ezri. I lift my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? This is not a folk remedy. Tehillim 121 is the psalm of ascent, the psalm of the guardian, the psalm that the sages specifically associated with the protection of the home. When you pour fresh water with this verse on your lips, you are not performing magic. You are aligning the physical act with a spiritual intention. And in Kabbalah, that alignment is everything. The third item is photographs of people that have been placed facing the main entrance of the home from the inside, particularly photographs that carry a specific emotional charge: grief, conflict, illness, or significant loss. I want to be precise here so that I am not misunderstood. Photographs of loved ones in a home are not a problem. Jewish homes are full of photographs of family, of grandparents, of celebrations, of generations. The issue is specific. Photographs positioned in such a way that they face directly toward the entrance of the home, and particularly photographs that contain within them a memory of pain. The Kabbalistic teaching behind this comes from an understanding of the doorway as a spiritually active boundary. The mezuzah on the doorpost functions as an intentional guardian of that boundary. What we place facing that boundary from inside the home affects the quality of what the mezuzah is working to protect. The Shulchan Aruch in Orach Chaim discusses the sanctity of the home's entrance as a threshold that requires awareness. The Kabbalistic masters of Safed extended this. They taught that the energy carried within images, particularly images holding the memory of strong emotions, is not neutral when placed at a spiritual boundary. This does not mean you must remove all photographs near an entrance. It means you should be conscious. A photograph of a grandmother who lived a long and blessed life placed with love near a doorway. This is a different object entirely than a photograph of a tragedy or an image taken during a period of suffering, placed there without thought because there was a nail in the wall. The practice: examine what faces your entrance from inside. If there is a photograph you have placed there without full intention, or if there is an image that carries the memory of loss or pain, move it. Place it elsewhere in the home where it can be held with love, not stationed as a guardian of the threshold it was never meant to guard. When you move it, say simply, "This image has its place, and it is not the doorway." After you have addressed all three, the broken object, the stagnant water, the misdirected photograph, stand in the center of your home, not near the door, not near a window, in the center, and recite the first 3 verses of Tehillim 91. Yoshev beseter Elyon, Betzel Shaddai Yitlonan, Omar lahashem Maksi umetsudati, Elohai evtachbo, Kihu yatzilcha mepach Yakush, Midever Havot. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of Hashem, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust, for He will deliver you from the snare of the fowler, from the destructive pestilence. Do not rush these verses. Tehillim 91 is, according to the tradition of the Zohar, a psalm of protection for the home itself. The sages called it a song against affliction, not because it brings affliction, but because it seals the home against it. Say it once. Let the words settle. And then what you will feel is not dramatic. It is quiet, like a door you have forgotten to close, finally closing. What to expect in the 24 hours after this practice? You may feel a lightness in the home that you had become so accustomed to its absence that you forgot what it felt like. In the 7 days after, pay attention to what begins to move that had been stuck. Business matters, conversations, relationships. In 40 days, which is the Kabbalistic period of completion, the same 40 days Moshe Rabbeinu spent on Sinai receiving the Torah, you will be able to look back and mark a clear before and after. I say this not as a promise of guaranteed outcomes. The sages teach that we open channels of protection, but as always, the outcome is in Hashem's hands. There are 2 sacred warnings I must give you before I close this teaching. The first, do not begin this practice while in a state of anger. The Zohar is explicit that spiritual practices performed in anger become distorted. They turn inward rather than outward. If you are in conflict with someone in your household, set the surface of that conflict aside first, even briefly, before you walk through your home with this intention. You do not need to resolve everything, but the bitterness must be set aside. The second, do not perform this practice as a one-time correction and then forget it. The home must be tended. Shield 4 is not a permanent installation. It is an ongoing awareness. Once a month, walk through your home with fresh eyes. Ask yourself, what has broken and not been repaired? What has stagnated and not been refreshed? What has been placed without intention and never re-examined? The home is a living vessel. It breathes with you. Treat it accordingly. I want to tell you something personal now, a moment in my own life when I ignored this shield. I was 41 years old, my daughter was about to be married, and the preparations in our home in Safed were joyful and busy and full of movement. In a corner of my study, there sat a ceramic vessel that had cracked during a difficult period 5 years earlier. I had kept it because my grandfather had given it to me. It held sentimental value that I told myself overrode its brokenness. My grandfather had passed away 7 years before. I could not bear to part with the vessel. That year, the year of my daughter's wedding, 2 things went wrong in our family that set us back in ways that took years to recover from. It was only afterward, sitting with the texts again, that I understood what had been sitting in the corner of my study. I did not blame the vessel. Kabbalah does not operate on the principle of blame, but I understood that I had made a choice to keep a broken thing because of my attachment to it, and that choice had consequences in the spiritual structure of my home. I gave the vessel a proper farewell. I held it, I spoke to it, I thanked it for everything it had represented, which was my connection to my grandfather, and then I placed it outside. And I understood, for the first time at that depth, what my grandfather had meant when he said to me, "Eliyahu, the shield alone cannot hold. You need all seven." I did not fully understand until I was 45 years old. Shield 4 protects the interior of the home, but without Shield 1, which addresses what enters through personal interaction, and without Shield 3, which addresses the home's boundary practices, Shield 4 is doing the work of 3 shields, and no single shield can carry that weight. We are living in a world where the pressure on families is significant. The economic instability of recent years has not released its grip on most households. People are making hard choices, and in the middle of those hard choices, the spiritual infrastructure of the home is often the first thing neglected, not out of carelessness, but out of exhaustion. This is precisely why this teaching must come now. What I have shared with you today is this: the home is not a neutral container. It is a spiritual vessel, and the Kabbalistic masters of Safed taught that this vessel must be actively maintained, not through elaborate ritual, but through conscious awareness of what we bring in and what we allow to remain. 3 things: broken objects kept without intention of repair or release, stagnant water left uncovered in vessels, photographs or images of strong emotional weight placed facing the entrance of the home without awareness. These are not curses, they are not objects of evil, they are attractors. And the wisdom of Shield 4 is in understanding the difference between what we keep in our home consciously and what we have simply stopped seeing. Examine your home today, with honesty, with intention, with the willingness to release what no longer serves the vessel. This knowledge carries weight. Use it with pure intention, for protection, never for anything other than the safeguarding of what Hashem has given you. The sages taught that segulot, spiritual practices and protections, are never to be weaponized. They are for building. They are for guarding. That is their only purpose. In my next teaching, I will reveal the shield that my grandfather called the most dangerous one to ignore. The one that the Zohar says is already broken in most modern homes, not through any dramatic event, but through a habit so ordinary, so daily, that most families have stopped registering it entirely. Watch for it. If you are subscribed to this channel and you have notifications turned on, you will receive it when it arrives. If you have not yet subscribed, do so now. This channel exists for one reason: to pass these teachings to the families who need them. Every week, a new teaching. Every teaching, a piece of the complete system. And write in the comments. Tell me what you found in your home today. What did you discover when you walked through with these new eyes? I read every comment, and I want to know. May your home be shielded, may your family be protected, and may Ayin Hara never find the door. Shalom.